Part 1. The Desperate Call. The Silent Watcher's communications officer Zephyr Caney stretched his tired shoulders as he stared at the endless stream of data flowing across his console screens. Another quiet night shift aboard monitoring station, Omega-7, floating in the empty void between star systems like a forgotten lighthouse. The station's primary mission was simple yet crucial: monitor the outer rim territories for distress signals, pirate activity, or any unusual threats to the peaceful Galactic Federation. For 3 years, Zephyr had worked this assignment, and the most exciting event had been a cargo freighter with navigation problems. Most of his colleagues considered Omega-7 a dead-end posting, far from the glamorous core worlds and bustling trade routes. But Zephyr actually enjoyed the solitude and the knowledge that his vigilance helped protect countless innocent lives. Across the galaxy, the station's commander, Captain Nora Steele, often joked that they were the galaxy's most expensive early warning system for absolutely nothing. A former military officer with silver hair and sharp blue eyes, she had requested this quiet assignment after decades of active service. Like Zephyr, she understood that sometimes the most important work happened in the forgotten corners of space. At you, exactly 0347 hours Galactic Standard Time, everything changed. Warning klaxons screamed throughout the station as Zephyr's console exploded with flashing red alerts. An encrypted emergency transmission had been detected from the far edge of Federation space, carrying priority distress codes that hadn't been used in over a decade. A voice from the darkness, Captain Steele, rushed into the communications center, her boots echoing against the metal flooring. "Report," she barked, instantly alert despite being awakened from deep sleep. "Ma'am, we're receiving a massive distress signal from the Kepler Nebula region," Zephyr replied, his fingers dancing across the controls to clean up the transmission. The encryption is old Federation military code, but the signal strength suggests extreme urgency. As the static cleared, a desperate voice filled the command center. The universal translator worked to convert the alien speech into standard galactic, but the fear and desperation needed no translation. "This is Captain Veltar of the refugee vessel Gentle Hope. We are carrying 80,000 Velnari civilians fleeing the destruction of our homeworld. We are being pursued by 60 warships of the Shadow Claw Empire. Our shields are failing. Our weapons are non-existent. We are peaceful people with no military capabilities." Zephyr felt his blood turn cold. The Velnari were known throughout the galaxy as one of the most peaceful species ever encountered. They were artists, philosophers, and healers who had never fought a war in their recorded history. The idea of them being hunted like prey was horrifying. Captain Veltar's voice continued through the static. "The Shadow Claw commander has already transmitted his demands. They want us to surrender for processing into their slave markets. We would rather die free than live in chains. Our estimated time before capture is 8 hours. We have transmitted our coordinates and request immediate assistance from any Federation forces in the region." The hunters and the hunted Captain Steele pulled up the tactical display, her experienced eyes quickly analyzing the situation. The Gentle Hope was a massive colony vessel, built for transporting families safely between star systems, not for running from military hunters. The Shadow Claw Empire was one of the galaxy's most feared militant organizations, known for conquering worlds and enslaving entire populations. "What Federation forces are in that sector?" Steele asked grimly. Zephyr's hands flew over his console, accessing military databases and fleet positions. "The nearest Federation task force is Admiral Harrison's group in the Vega system, but they're dealing with a major pirate outbreak. The next closest would be the patrol flotilla near Centauri Prime, but they're 3 weeks away at maximum hyperspace speed." The silence that followed was deafening. By the time any Federation fleet could respond, 80,000 innocent civilians would be dead or worse. The Shadow Claw Empire was notorious for its brutal treatment of prisoners, especially civilians, from peaceful species. "There has to be someone closer," Steele muttered, studying the star charts with growing frustration. "What about independent contractors? Mercenary groups? Anyone with enough firepower to make a difference?" Zephyr hesitated, then highlighted a star system only 4 days away from the Gentle Hope's position. "Ma'am, there is one possibility, but it's complicated." Captain Steele looked at the highlighted system and felt her stomach drop. The Sol system, she whispered. You're talking about the humans. The quarantined warriors, the Sol system had been under strict quarantine for 40 years. Ever since humanity's first contact with the Galactic Federation had gone catastrophically wrong. The official records were classified, but everyone in Federation space knew the basic facts. Humans were classified as an extremely dangerous species from what the scientists called a death world. Earth was a planet so violent and unpredictable that it had produced the most militaristic species the galaxy had ever encountered. Extreme weather, deadly predators, toxic environments, and constant natural disasters had forged a race of beings who approached every problem with the assumption that violence was not only possible but probable. The psychological profiles were even more disturbing. Humans had spent most of their recorded history fighting wars with each other over resources, territory, ideology, and religion. They were naturally aggressive, highly territorial, and seemed to view conflict as a normal part of existence. Their military technology had advanced at an alarming rate, far outpacing their social and ethical development. The Federation's first contact team had been so disturbed by what they found that they recommended immediate quarantine. Humanity was deemed too dangerous for peaceful galactic society, and the Sol system was declared off-limits to all Federation traffic. The quarantine protocols are absolute, Captain Steele said, but her voice lacked conviction. Breaking them would be a court-martial offense at minimum. Ma'am, Zephyr said quietly. What's worse? Breaking quarantine protocols or letting 80,000 innocent people die when we could have prevented it? The impossible choice for long minutes, Captain. Steele stared at the tactical display showing the Gentle Hope's desperate flight. 80,000 civilians, including countless children, racing toward certain death or slavery. The nearest Federation fleet was weeks away. The humans were 4 days away. Everything in her training told her that contact with the quarantined species was forbidden, but everything in her conscience told her that abandoning civilians to slavers was unthinkable. The Federation's most sacred principle was the protection of innocent life, regardless of species or political affiliation. Pull up everything we have on human military capabilities, she ordered finally. Zephyr accessed the classified databases, his security clearance just barely sufficient for the restricted files. What he found made both officers pale. According to intelligence reports, the entire human planet was essentially one massive military installation. Their ships were built like weapons platforms, covered in armor and bristling with devastating firepower. Their military doctrine emphasized speed, overwhelming force, and total victory. Ma'am, Zephyr said nervously, according to these reports, humans don't just win battles, they end them completely. Which might be exactly what those refugees need, Captain Steele replied grimly. She walked to the main communications console and began encoding a priority transmission. Her hands shook slightly as she realized she was about to make first contact with humanity in 4 decades and potentially change the balance of power in the galaxy forever. The message that changed everything, the transmission that left Omega-7, was brief but contained everything the humans would need to understand the situation. The complete distress call from Captain Veltar, tactical data on the Shadowclaw fleet, detailed information about the Velnari refugees, and a formal request for humanitarian assistance. Captain Steele marked the message with every priority code she had authorization to use, then added one more line. 80,000 innocent lives depend on your response. The galaxy is watching. As the message launched into hyperspace, carrying with it the desperate hope of an entire species, neither Zephyr nor Captain Steele could have imagined that their decision would end humanity's quarantine forever and introduce the galaxy to the most effective military force it had ever seen. The countdown timer on their screens showed 7 hours and 43 minutes until the Shadowclaw fleet would catch the Gentle Hope. In the cold silence of space, 2 Federation officers waited to see if humanity would answer the call for help, and what would happen when the galaxy's most feared warriors learned that children were in danger. The message raced through hyperspace toward Earth, carrying with the weight of 80,000 lives and the future of galactic politics. Humanity was about to return to the stars and nothing would ever be the same. Humanity Unleashed, The Sleeping Giants. Awakened deep within the Sol system, humanity's military forces had spent 4 decades preparing for a war they hoped would never come. The Luna Base. Deep Space Communications Array detected the incoming transmission at 05:22 hours Earth Standard Time, and within minutes, every alarm in the solar system was screaming. Admiral Marcus Kane was aboard the dreadnought Titan's Wrath when the message reached him. At 58 years old, Kane had dedicated his entire career to defending humanity and preparing for the day when the galaxy might threaten Earth. The massive warship floated near Jupiter's asteroid belt, leading Battle Group Phoenix through advanced combat exercises. Kane's weathered face remained expressionless as he listened to the alien distress call. Captain Veltar's desperate voice filled the command center, translated into English by the ship's advanced computers. 80,000 civilians fleeing for their lives, 60 enemy warships in pursuit. A species that had never known war being hunted by slavers. "Analysis, Captain Phoenix," Kane said, turning to the commander of the heavy cruiser Shadowbane. Captain Jade Phoenix studied the tactical data streaming across her displays. At 35, she was one of the youngest ship commanders in the Waiwa fleet, but her tactical genius had earned her Kane's complete trust. "Sir, it's obviously a trap. After 40 years of isolation, we suddenly get a convenient distress call from aliens who just happen to be close enough for us to respond." "And yet?" Kane prompted, knowing there was more. "And yet, if it's real, we're looking at genocide," Phoenix continued. 80,000 civilians, including families and children. The tactical data suggests standard galactic military doctrine, nothing we haven't faced in our combat simulations. Commander Rex Stone, the fleet's marine assault leader, looked up from his own analysis. "Sir, I've been studying the enemy fleet composition. These Shadowclaw ships rely on intimidation and overwhelming numbers. Their weapons are designed for terror rather than efficiency. Against civilian targets, they're devastating. Against proper military vessels," he shrugged, "they're just targets." The weight of decision. Kane studied the star charts showing the Kepler Nebula region. 4 days at maximum hyperspace speed. For humanity's advanced ships, it might as well be next door. But breaking the quarantine would end 40 years of isolation and announce to the galaxy that humanity was ready to take its place among the stars again. "What's our force strength?" Kane asked. 15 ships, replied General Lyra Cross, the fleet's strategic operations chief. The Titan's Wrath, 4 heavy cruisers, 8 destroyers, and 2 assault carriers. "Full combat readiness, sir," Kane nodded. It was a small force by galactic standards, but human military philosophy had always emphasized quality over quantity. Every ship in his fleet was a masterpiece of military engineering, built by a species that understood war at a fundamental level. "What do we know about these Shadowclaw forces?" Kane asked. "Standard galactic military doctrine," Phoenix answered. "Large fleets, energy weapons, defensive shields. They rely on superior numbers and psychological intimidation. Their ships are built more for show than actual combat effectiveness." Kane smiled grimly. Humanity had fought similar enemies during the corporate wars of the 22nd century. Bullies who relied on overwhelming weaker opponents through sheer numbers and fear tactics. The command center fell silent as Kane weighed their options. Officially, Earth Command would require extensive consultation before authorizing any military action. Unofficially, every human officer had been raised on the principle that protecting innocent life was humanity's highest calling. The call to arms. "Sir," Commander Stone said quietly, "Earth Command is requesting immediate consultation. They want to review the situation before making any decisions." Kane looked at the countdown timer showing the Gentle Hope's estimated time before capture. 6 hours and dropping. By the time Earth's politicians finished debating, 80,000 civilians would be dead or enslaved. "Commander Cross, send a message to Earth Command," Kane said finally. "Inform them that Battle Group Phoenix is responding to a humanitarian crisis under Emergency Protocol 9. Phoenix raised an eyebrow. Emergency Protocol 9 was designed for situations where Earth itself faced immediate extinction-level threats. Using it for an alien distress call was technically grounds for court-martial. "Sir, that protocol doesn't apply to—" Cross began. "Commander," Kane interrupted, his voice carrying the authority of 4 decades in service. "Are you telling me that humanity should stand by and watch while children are murdered, simply because they don't happen to be human children?" The silence that followed was answer enough. Cross began encoding the message to Earth while Phoenix started calculating hyperspace jump coordinates. "What about the quarantine?" Phoenix asked. "The moment we show up, the entire galaxy will know. Humanity is back." "Good," Kane replied. "Maybe it's time they remembered why they were afraid of us in the first place." The fleet assembles Captain Morgan Steele of the heavy cruiser Retribution appeared on the communication screen from her bridge. "Admiral, my crew is ready to jump on your order, but I have to ask, are we really going to start an interstellar incident over aliens we've never met?" Kane looked around his command center at the faces of his officers. These were men and women who had joined Earth's military to protect humanity, but their oath had always been broader than that. They had sworn to protect the innocent, regardless of species. "Captain Steele," Kane said, his voice carrying across all 15 ships. "Humanity spent 3 centuries learning how to wage war efficiently. We fought over resources, territory, ideology, and religion. But there's one thing we've never done. We've never abandoned children to slavers." The fleet commander's voice echoed through every ship as he gave the order that would change galactic history. "All ships, prepare for hyperspace jump. Destination, Kepler Nebula. Mission parameters, rescue 80,000 civilians and eliminate any hostile forces threatening them." As Battle Group Phoenix prepared to jump, Kane sent one final message to the monitoring station that had requested their help. "Tell the Gentle Hope to maintain course and prepare for assistance. Humanity is coming." The hunters become the hunted. The Shadowclaw fleet moved through space like a pack of predators closing in on wounded prey. 60 warships arranged in perfect hunting formation, their dark hulls bristling with weapons designed more for intimidation than actual combat effectiveness. At the center of the formation, Warlord Grimlock Voss commanded from his flagship Iron Terror, a massive vessel that looked like a floating fortress of spikes and armor plating. The Gentle Hope limped ahead of them, its engines failing after days of constant flight. The Velnari colony ship had never been designed for high-speed travel. It was a peaceful vessel meant to carry families safely between stars, not to run from military hunters. On the bridge of the Gentle Hope, Captain Veltar watched his tactical display with growing despair. The Shadowclaw ships had been toying with them, staying close enough to prevent escape but far enough away to prolong the psychological torture. It was warfare designed to break the will of their prey before capture. "Captain," his communications officer said quietly, "we're receiving another surrender demand from the Shadowclaw flagship." Veltar closed his eyes briefly. The previous demands had been horrifyingly clear. Surrender now and face slavery. Continue running and face extermination. For a peaceful species like the Velnari, both options were unthinkable. "Sir," the navigation officer called out suddenly, "I'm reading massive hyperspace signatures approaching our position. 15 ships, unknown configuration." Veltar's heart sank. More Shadowclaw vessels probably coming to ensure there would be no escape. He had hoped the message to the Federation monitoring station might bring help, but the nearest fleet was weeks away. The arrival of thunder, the hyperspace signatures resolved into reality with flashes of brilliant blue light. 15 ships dropped, out of faster-than-light travel in perfect military formation, but these vessels were unlike anything anyone in either fleet had ever seen. Where galactic ships were smooth and elegant, designed as much for aesthetics as function, these newcomers were angular and brutal. Their hulls were thick with ablative armor plating, covered in weapon hardpoints and sensor arrays. They looked less like spaceships and more like flying weapons platforms designed by beings who understood that space was hostile and enemies were everywhere. Aboard the Iron Terror, Warlord Voss stared at his tactical display in confusion. "What are those things?" he demanded of his intelligence officer. "Unknown ship design, sir. I'm not finding them in any of our databases. Energy signatures suggest They're using some kind of advanced fusion-based power system. Very sophisticated, but the power output readings are impossible. Voss laughed harshly. Primitives with fusion engines. Someone's playing hero. He opened a communication channel to the unknown fleet. Unknown vessels. You are interfering with lawful Shadow Claw military operations. Withdraw immediately or be destroyed. The response came from the lead ship, broadcast on all frequencies in clear galactic standard. The voice was calm, professional, and absolutely certain of its authority. Shadow Claw vessels. This is Admiral Marcus Kane of the Human Federation Navy. You are ordered to withdraw immediately and cease your pursuit of the civilian vessel. This is your only warning. The galaxy meets its masters. Voss had never heard of such a species. He turned to his intelligence officer, who was frantically searching through the galactic databases. Sir, I'm finding some old quarantine records. Apparently, there's a species called humans that was isolated by the Galactic Federation decades ago. Classified as extremely dangerous. The files are marked with severe warnings about their aggressive nature. Voss felt a moment of unease, then pushed it aside. He had 60 ships against 15. The numbers spoke for themselves. Unknown Admiral Kane, Voss broadcast. I am Warlord Grimlock Voss of the Shadowclaw Empire. You are outnumbered 4-1. I suggest you leave now before I add your ships to my collection of trophies. The human response was immediate and chilling. Warlord Voss, you have 60 seconds to begin withdrawing your forces. After that, we will consider you a hostile threat to civilian lives. We do not negotiate with slavers. Voss had conquered 17 star systems and enslaved millions of beings. No one gave him ultimatums. All ships destroy the unknown vessels. Show them what happens when primitives challenge the Shadowclaw Empire, the education of the galaxy. The first Shadowclaw ships to open fire learned why humans had been quarantined from galactic society. The moment the enemy energy weapons struck human shields, the 15 human ships responded with devastating efficiency that redefined what the galaxy thought it knew about warfare. What the aliens had mistaken for crude technology was actually the result of centuries of military evolution by a species that had perfected the art of killing. Captain Phoenix's cruiser Shadowbane demonstrated human combat philosophy with its opening salvo, instead of the measured, honorable exchanges preferred by galactic militaries. The human ship unleashed everything it had in the first 5 seconds of combat. Railguns fired tungsten slugs at 30% of light speed, punching through Shadowclaw shields like they were made of tissue paper. Plasma torpedoes followed, each one carrying enough destructive power to gut a galactic dreadnought. Point. Defense systems created walls of deadly projectiles that shredded incoming missiles before they could reach their targets. The humans had built their ships to kill other ships as quickly and efficiently as possible, and it showed. What are those weapons? Voss screamed as 5 of his vessels exploded in the first exchange. His tactical officer was pale with shock. Sir, they're using kinetic projectiles at relativistic speeds. Our shields weren't designed to stop solid matter moving that fast, and those torpedo warheads, the energy output is impossible. The human fleet moved through the Shadowclaw formation like wolves among sheep. Every shot was precise, every maneuver calculated for maximum destruction. There was no wasted motion, no unnecessary displays of power, just pure, efficient lethality. Admiral Kane's voice cut through the chaos. Shadowclaw vessels. You are firing on ships protecting civilians. Under human military law, that makes you enemy combatants. We do not take prisoners from forces that threaten non-combatants. The Iron Terror shuddered as human weapons tore through its armor like paper. Voss realized with growing horror that his superior numbers meant nothing against an enemy that could destroy his ships faster than he could target theirs. All ships, retreat, emergency hyperspace jump, he ordered. But it was too late. The human fleet had positioned itself to cut off escape routes, and one by one, Shadowclaw ships died in brilliant explosions as human weapons found their targets with terrifying accuracy. In less than 25 minutes, the mighty Shadowclaw fleet was reduced to wreckage and a handful of fleeing survivors. The galaxy had just witnessed the return of humanity, and it was more terrifying than anyone had imagined. As the debris fields cooled and the last enemy ships fled into hyperspace, Admiral Kane opened a channel to the Gentle Hope. "Captain Veltar, this is Admiral Kane. You and your people are safe now. We're deploying medical teams and engineering crews to assist with repairs. Welcome to the protection of the Human Federation." The age of human isolation was over. The galaxy would never be the same.